Would you like to get a query letter critiqued, but you cannot pay to make that happen? I will do it for free, but it will be public out here on all of my socials. My name is Gina. I'm an author, editor, publishing professional. I help you make your writing better. Everybody, please remember that there is a real life person on the other side of this, and while I do endeavor to be constructive rather than destructive in my criticism is always hard to hear, so everybody be nice, and nobody jump into the comments and tell them to just go self-publish. That's not how any of this works. Let's jump in. A World Not Made for Children, Banshees and Centaurs is an 85,000 word YA portal fantasy with high fantasy world building. You don't need to list two separate subgenres for fantasy. You can just say that it is an 85,000 word YA fantasy. I do have a little bit of a concern with this title. YA is part of Kidlit, is books for children who are legally children, but those kiddos who are 14 to 18, they don't like being called kiddos, for one, but they also don't really love being called children. And so I'm not sure that this title is going to fly in young adult. Word count is good, though, even for a fantasy. It can best be described as Stranger Things meets Legends and Lattes. We have another problem here. So neither of these things are high fantasy. I mean, I guess Legends and Lattes is high fantasy, but it is a cozy fantasy, and neither of these are young adult audiences. Stranger Things maybe is a young adult. I mean, that TV doesn't get broken up quite the same way, and so neither of these are comp titles. This is a pitch at best, but you don't have any comp titles here. So if you take a look at all of those things that I just said in that opening pitch paragraph, we have a title that does not match with the category that you are in. We have some genre confusion, and then we have no comp titles, and we have some genre and category confusion, right? Like, this is a low, cozy fantasy, but we are talking about something that is very high, probably, especially portal fantasy is rarely cozy. It is often like save the world, save the empire type stuff. So we have some confusion. This makes it look like you have not done your research, that you do not know where your book sits within the market, and it is probably, an agent reading this is going to look and say this is probably going to be filled with a lot of tropes and not actually be well researched and not going to actually sit in the market in a way that feels fresh and invigorating. But I've been proven wrong, and an agent will read past this, but that is what they're going to be thinking. They're going to see this and they're going to start like reading everything else with a heavier dose of sort of cynicism going into this. You're setting yourself on a bad path here by pitching it this way. But like I said, I have been wrong, and an agent will keep reading, so let's keep going. It is a distinct possibility that Vessa, 15-year-old Minnesotan girl, and her friends are in over their heads. That's not a super strong start. That tells me nothing. I don't know what it is that she wants. I don't know why she's in over her heads. You are taking too long to set things up. You only have a couple of paragraphs in a query letter. You've got to start strong. Let's keep going. They are regular, everyday Americans in the late 1990s stuck in another world. We already know that it's a portal fantasy, so now you're not using your space effectively. Now, Vessa must make the tough decisions to do what's right for her 8-year-old sister in a world that is not so friendly to children. Your entire first paragraph has told me Vessa has a problem. That's all that you have conveyed, is that there is a problem of some kind. I don't know what it is. I don't know how she's going to solve it. I don't know why she's the person that has to solve it. I don't know any of the things that I need to know about a story. Combine that with the concerns that I have about the pitch, and we're not on a good path. All right, so a world that is not so friendly to children was the previous paragraph. Well, at least there are elves here. I don't know. Oh, let's keep going. I don't know what that has to do. All the stories say they are angelic and proper. They aren't. Did that one just do that too? Oh, okay. Wow. Never mind then. Um, I don't know what we're talking about. I am going to assume that you are saying that the elves are not angelic and proper, but like, I'm not entirely sure that elves really are considered to be angelic. Like, they're often like devious, right? Like, they're not really super nice. They're not usually like the heroes of, I don't know. But then all of this voicey, this is too much voice in a query letter. I don't know, what are you hinting at that this elf has done? What are you, like, whose the voice is this? Do you have an omniscient narrator? Omniscient narrators are extremely unpopular and difficult to pull off. This is confusing more than anything. All right, at least Fractious and his family centaurs are here to help. Wait, Fractious encourages Vessa to develop her fighting skills when he refuses the same right to even his own daughter. Something doesn't smell right. With a name like this, Fractious, and this voice, this all feels very middle grade. This does not feel like, remember, young adult is for those kids who are 14 to 18, but kids tend to like try to read up a little bit. You need to think of a 17-and-a-half-year-old as your target audience. And we can do some like lower YA stuff, But even then, a 14-year-old, if they are reading young adult books, they're reading up. They're not, this feels very middle grade. This feels like your target is 11 years old, not 17 years old. And it's even on the silly side for middle grade. So we now have a voice mismatch. We have way too much voice, and I still don't know what the story is. We went from Vesa having to make tough decisions, whatever that means, but now there's elves, but also elves are doing something shady, and also there's a centaur, but with a silly name, and he's encouraging Vesa to develop fighting skills. For why? For what purpose? Why does she need to fight? Why is he the one to teach her? What is going on? All right, so something doesn't smell right. In this world full of mysterious banshees, man-eating ogres, and wild beasts, Vesa and her friends must get back home. That, why? Why do they need to get back home? I mean, other than like, that's the way the story generally goes, is that we go out on a portal fantasy and we come back home, but why? Why do they need to get home? Let's look at those 5 questions that every query letter needs to answer. Who is our main character? That's Vesa. What is it that she wants? I guess, to get home. What is she willing to do to get it? No idea. There's some fighting involved, I guess. What is standing in her way? A lot of monsters. It looks like you're very, very proud of your take on monsters, that you are very interested in putting a new, fresh spin on a lot of mythological creatures and magical beasts. And that's fun. Kids like that kind of stuff as well. To them, it feels like, oh, look, I'm doing something different than what my parents were reading. And so you're in the right vein with that. But that is, I don't know why that's standing in her way. I don't know why she's the person who has to do the protecting. I don't know any of this. What happens if she fails? No idea. No idea. Lots of kids love to stay in the portal world that they are in, right? Like the Pevensey kids didn't want to leave Narnia, right? Like that wasn't the goal. The goal wasn't to get home. The goal was to save the universe. And so just because she's in a portal doesn't mean she has to get home. That's a convention that often happens within that genre, but you haven't told me anything about what is at stake for this character, and you haven't even told me the cool stuff having to do with the world building. Not, don't do world building in the query letter, but you haven't even done that, right? Like, this tells me there are things. That's what we have. Vesa has a problem. I'm not going to tell you what it is. There are things, and I'm not going to tell you what they have to do with Vesa. Good luck. And then if we tie this back to that original paragraph and the pitch and the concerns that I had with it, you can see how this, even if the manuscript itself is in fantastic shape, this makes it look like you haven't put in the time, that you came up with a cool, fun idea, and it is just a bunch of cool, fun ideas on the page without actually being a story, without actually having a character arc. That's what this looks like. An 8, now this is competently written, right? Like, there's not a ton of typos. It is, sentences make sense, like they are real sentences. So an agent would probably look at this and scroll down and take a quick glance at the pages. But in having done just hundreds of pitch submission packages with people, I can tell you that a query letter like this, the pages will almost always invariably start in the wrong place. They will be a prologue disguised as chapter 1. There will always be something in those early pages that's like, oh no, this isn't ready. Structurally, there are problems. So at every stage, the agent will give you the benefit of the doubt. They will keep looking. They will keep trying to find something to latch onto, but you keep giving them no reason to keep going. Like, at every stage, you need that benefit of the doubt. Focus on character, focus on stakes, make sure that the story has an emotional through line and has a complete character arc.